And hello, everyone. Welcome back into SEC Talk and heading into week number 5. The weeks just keep on moving on as we go into this season out of really non-conference play into conference play. We had some big games, Tennessee, Oklahoma that we will definitely get into, Arkansas, Auburn, and then some other games that happened in the SEC. And we also had some movement here in the AP poll, which we'll get to here in a couple of minutes. But wait, how was your weekend? It was a steamy and hot one in Tiger Stadium on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a sauna in Tiger Stadium. Elise and I survived the first half, but had to cut out, man. It was just pretty miserable there in the Golden Zone. Luckily, some fans did get some shade and were able to cheer on the Tigers to victory, but it was enough for us.
Yeah, I mean, 2:30 games on a Saturday in September is definitely not fun. I think I saw a report there was like 70 people that had to go to like the medical tent. So yeah, that's not exciting times there. If you like, it's like that was like your one game to go to. That was definitely not the game that you wanted to go to. It was feel like 107 and 130 on the field too. If you were watching the game, they had reports of 130 degrees on the field. So it was a hot one throughout the Southeastern Conference this weekend. So let's get right into here on our show, as we always do here with SEC teams in the AP Top 25 poll. There was a little bit of movement, but not much movement that we saw in last week's show. Still the number one team, Texas. They took care of the Louisiana Monroe. Arch Manning, he had a good performance. We'll get to him in a couple of minutes here in SEC Fantasy Recap. Number 2, Georgia. Number 4, Alabama. They will get their clash in T-Town this weekend. Both teams were on the bye, so you see no movement there. You do see a little flip between Tennessee and Ole Miss. Tennessee, a big victory on the road, 25-15 over the Oklahoma Sooners. So you see Tennessee jump Ole Miss. Ole Miss, they got the victory 52-13 against Georgia Southern this past weekend in Oxford. So Ole Miss just continues to roll. They'll get in the conference play this weekend against the Kentucky Wildcats. So really the first test for Ole Miss, but Kentucky, if you really watch them this season, that game should get out of hand pretty quickly. And then number 11, Missouri. This is a team that's undefeated, but, they needed overtime to beat Vanderbilt, so they dropped 4 spots. They were number 7 heading into that game. Now they're number 11. So there's a little bit of cause for concern if you're a Missouri fan, but honestly, hey, you're still undefeated. Everything is still right in front of you. LSU, they moved up a couple of spots to number 14 after their big victory at home against UCLA, getting a little bit of revenge for that loss to UCLA a couple of years back. Oklahoma, they drop after their home loss against Tennessee. We'll definitely get to them. So they're number 21. And then rounding out our top 25 is Texas A&M. So really the notable, you see Missouri falling. But what's your other surprise that you see here?
I just think Oklahoma to not have any sort of offense clicking. Jackson Arnold is supposed to be the next big Oklahoma quarterback. Dylan Gabriel transferred out to allow for that to happen. And that team, they didn't play bad against Tennessee. The defense held them in it, but they committed way too many turnovers. Arnold specifically, I think, had 3. And I just don't think this team, offensively at least, looks like a top 25 team. And same thing could be for Texas A&M. I mean, another just kind of grinded out game for them. They barely beat a MAC team, albeit a good one, in Bowling Green. So, those two teams there at the bottom of the top 25, I don't think you can gripe too much. It is the bottom of the top 25, but I just don't know if those two teams are really legit yet.
Yeah, I definitely have some question marks about Oklahoma and Texas A&M, and Missouri definitely needs to show me more. I mean, back-to-back weeks they've been struggling against Boston College and Vanderbilt. Boston College, they're a good team and all, but struggling against Vandy. It's definitely causes some cause to concern. So we'll see if Missouri, not really can bounce back, but can they show that they can be that top 10 team that they were? So we see 9 teams here in the SEC. So the SEC is holding strong. Obviously, once we get into the conference play, that will definitely change. So we'll see how many teams survive that stretch. But as always, here on the show, if you have any questions pertaining to SEC football or just college football in general, feel free to leave us a comment down in the comment section, and we will get to it here throughout the show and at the end of the show after a hot topic segment. So let's get into one of our fan favorite segments, and that is SEC Fantasy. Let's get to our SEC Fantasy Week 4 results. Wade, take it away because your team had himself a day.
Yeah, really couldn't have drawn this up much better. I think I did have the top performing running back and wide receiver of the week, and then Nussmeier held his own, putting up 352 total yards. Nate Noel, I mean, it was the right week to pick him. He did what we thought against Vanderbilt, having 199 yards on the ground and 8 yards through the air. His team kind of struggled, as we'll get to in a bit, but Nate Noel ran all over the Commodores. No problem there. Trey Harris, he put up 225 yards. Just another really good performance for him. I know it was against Georgia Southern, but he's going to have no problem even once we get into SEC play. I mean, he's going to light it up. And Ole Miss just got Juice Wells back. So this team's going to sling it. And, that might cut into Harris's production some, but he's still going to be an alpha receiver in the SEC. Proved that on Saturday with 225. And then the Missouri defense. A little bit of a head scratcher. The score was a lot closer than we thought. It went to overtime. 324 yards. I mean, it's not horrible. I'll take it. But I was expecting this unit to get me under 300, maybe under 250. But as it is, 460 yards, definitely my best total of the year, and probably maybe ever. I don't know.
Yeah, we honestly thought that this was going to be the week that we broke the record. I think that one of us a couple of years back, or maybe even a year ago, we hit over 600. But yeah, Garrett Nussmeier, that was all on through the air. He had 0 rushing yards. That was all 352 yards.
But also 0 sacks. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, that too. So got to give credit to LSU's offensive line for really handling a really talented UCLA defensive front. Nate Noel, I was looking like he already had like 100 yards at the half, and Trey Harris, he had like 130 yards at the half too. So all your guys, you really picked well. I think that you got the top quarterback, the top running back, and the top wide receiver this week. So pretty good week for you. That should probably be enough. 460. That's going to be a tough to beat. So we'll see how my team did. Arch Manning, really good performance from him. A couple of touchdowns. He did throw an interception, but they put up 51 points against Louisiana Monroe. It's just a typical, all right, let's just step on the field, get our warm-ups in, get this win. Let's get out of here.
We're going to do it again this week too.
Yeah, pretty much. But 258 yards. Most of this was through the air. You saw last week he had that 70-yard rushing touchdown. Didn't get that this week. We'll see if he does get the start against the Bulldogs. We'll see if he gets that going. Jaquindon Jackson, 75 yards for him. Pretty solid outing against an Auburn team that we will definitely get to. That was definitely a rough game for Auburn. Luther Burden, I was expecting more out of him. He did get a touchdown, 76 yards. Honestly, I'll take it. And then South Carolina's defense did what I expected them to do, 154 yards. They did give up a touchdown against Akron, but so be it. And that's 255, respectable, but not enough to beat you. So you get your first victory here in SEC Fantasy. So before we get to your draft pick, let's dive into our SEC Fantasy rules, as always, here on the show. So pretty much the roster is 1 quarterback, 1 running back, a receiver, and a defense, and then a couple of rules to go through. You cannot draft the same player twice in back-to-back weeks. And then once you draft the defense, you can't use them again. So we're already through 4 weeks of the season where you have 4 defenses, respectively. That is out of reach here. And we've been doing a pretty good job of trying to use every team. So really good SEC fantasy rules that we have in place this season. So you had the first overall pick. You didn't take it on the quarterback, but you are going to be taking whoever the heck starts for Texas on Saturday.
I like the graphic. Yeah, I think it's probably going to be Arch Manning.
Texas QB.
There's no need to rush back Quinn Ewers for this matchup against Mississippi State. I think the scout team could handle Mississippi State this weekend. I'm expecting the game to be pretty similar to what we saw against Louisiana Monroe. I mean, there's no way to me that Texas struggles. And I think Arch Manning, if he does get to start, this could be really good for him to get an SEC start that's not in a high-stress environment. You know, we saw him have a little bit of an adjustment this past week. He did have 2 interceptions, but he threw for over 250 yards. And I think that he can easily do that again. And if it's Quinn Ewers, I mean, that's an added bonus because if it's him, he's going to light this team up.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty confident either way with the Texas quarterbacks. But your guy Dart, I mean, he's gone over 350 each week. So very good matchup against Kentucky.
Yeah, I do want to get to Texas. I think that if I was Steve Sarkisian, I would just go for Arch Manning. I mean, Mississippi State's not a very good football team. I think that really just saved Quinn Ewers to the Red River
Yeah, let him
rivalry against
rest up.
Oklahoma and Dallas. But yeah, yeah, I would definitely be shocked if we do see Quinn Ewers. But hey, I mean, you get to pull out a 5-star of Arch Manning. I mean, he'll still put up some good numbers against that Mississippi State defense. And like you mentioned, Jackson Dart, this is the first time that I'm drafted him. It took me 5 weeks to do it. And going up against Kentucky, I mean, this is the best defense that Ole Miss has played so far this season. Am I concerned? No, I'm not. Like you just mentioned, a lot of wide receivers. And we talked about the wide receivers. You got a guy like Henry Parrish out of the backfield that's really just putting up consistent numbers week in and week out. So this Ole Miss offense is loaded. They're probably going to put up 30, 40 points again and probably cruise to a victory against Kentucky. So Jackson Dart, if you really look at the stats, it's number 1 is Jackson Dart, and number 2 right behind him is Garrett Nussmeier. So those have been the top 2 quarterbacks here in the SEC, and those 2 quarterbacks will match up here in a couple of weeks. So definitely exciting matchup to watch if you're a fan of both of those teams. So we see the Texas quarterback, whoever it's going to be, probably going to be Arch Manning for you. And then we see Jackson Dart, probably going to be a lot of numbers for both sides. So now let's go on to the running back. You went with Le'Veon Moss. He gets the Arkansas Razorbacks in that matchup in Jerry World. I'm going to go with Jaden Blue out of Texas. So first, talk about Moss. You seem to really like him.
Yeah, this is my second time using him. I just think he has a pretty good matchup against Arkansas. I know that Arkansas has improved defensively, and they're coming off the win against Auburn. But I think Texas A&M is going to try to run the ball a lot in this game. And, just because they've had some inconsistent quarterback play. So I like Moss here. I think he is a candidate for 100 yards just based off usage.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we look at the really past weeks that Texas A&M has really relied on Le'Veon Moss in the Florida game. He had himself a day, and then yesterday against Bowling Green, they really relied on him too, and look for the same against Arkansas. So really good pick there by Le'Veon Moss. I'm going to go for a new guy here for SU Fantasy, Jaden Blue, the Texas running back, like we just talked about, Mississippi State. If you watch Mississippi State's defense, they can't really stop anybody. And Jaden Blue coming off a good performance against ULM, where he had 20 carries for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. So honestly, if you want to do that again, maybe even more, I'll take it. So I will go Jaden Blue, really consistent back. And he also is a good pass catching back too. So going to be looking for him to do it all on Saturday against the Dogs. So we're both taking 2 running backs from Texas. Now let's go on to the wide receivers. This was actually your first pick here, which was really surprised me. But honestly, Aaron Anderson, outside of Kyron Lacey, has been that go-to guy for Garrett Nussmeier. So how do you like this matchup against the South Alabama team that's pesky on offense, but defense, not so much?
Well, Kyron Lacey's been the go-to guy in the red zone, and no doubt, I mean, he might have 2 touchdowns against South Alabama. But Aaron Anderson rather has been the yardage guy. I mean, he's just a field stretcher. He's had 70+ yards in the last 3 games. I just don't see how South Alabama is going to match up against such a elite speed threat. I just think that Nussmeier's bound to hit him deep on, a 70-yard touchdown or something. And I don't know. It's just been interesting to see him develop and grow as a player, and pretty favorable matchup. I think there's going to be a lot of points on the board in that game. South Alabama can certainly maybe score early and pace with LSU. So I think LSU is going to have to run their offense. They're going to have to air it out at least early. So look for Aaron Anderson to have himself a day.
Well, Aaron Anderson, welcome to SEC Fantasy. So we'll see if Anderson can put up a good performance for you. And I just had to pick somebody from this matchup. None of us could go without picking a guy from Georgia and Alabama. I'm going to go with one of their star wide receivers, and the freshman, that is, Brian Williams. You picked him a couple of weeks back. Did pretty good for you. He did have a good game a couple of weeks back. Last time that Alabama stepped on the field, 70 yards and a touchdown. We'll see. It's going to be a very tough matchup going against that Georgia secondary, but somebody's got to step up for this Crimson Tide offense. I think that Ryan Williams is going to be the guy for that. So 2 stud wide receivers, a former Alabama wide receiver for you, Aaron Anderson, and an Alabama receiver for me, Ryan Williams. So now let's go on to the defenses. I don't know what you got to do, Wade, to get a good defensive performance.
Pick one,
but you're
man.
going to stick it with Missouri. I definitely forgot the logos, so sorry about that. And also,
it's okay, they don't deserve
forgot
one. They
about
lost to Vanderbilt.
yeah, forgot about the defenses too. So I guess I completely forgot about it. But what defense are you going with this week?
This week, I'm going to go with Oklahoma against Auburn. If you watched Auburn this past week, I mean, they just look lifeless on offense. And we don't know which quarterback they're going to roll out, but frankly, it doesn't matter. I think Oklahoma's going to hold them to, I hope, under 250, but I guess I've been pretty bad at picking this.
Yeah, I mean, I could see like Peyton Thorne going for like 100 yards rushing out of nowhere, but hopefully Oklahoma can step up for you. I'm going to go with another new face here in defense. For me, is the Texas defense. Not really much to say. Mississippi State's offense has just been downright awful. And keep in mind, Blake Shapen's out for the year, so don't know how that's going to go for them. So two former Big 12 schools that we face with Oklahoma and Texas. So we're definitely going to be rooting for a lot of points on offense for them, but the defense is a step up for us. So now let's go on to our Week 4 SEC games. To recap here, let's start with the first one of Arkansas at Auburn. This was a 2:30 game, and Arkansas got the victory 24-14. It was a very ugly game. Really not much offense on both sides of the ball, especially for Auburn. I mean, 6 turnovers in this game. I don't know what the heck is going on with Auburn this season. They're one of my dark horse teams to maybe go to 8 wins. Honestly, I'm regarding that pick as it goes because no matter what quarterback they put on there, whether that's a freshman with Hunter Brown or Peyton Thorne, nothing can work. I mean, I don't know what Hugh Freeze is doing. He's just now throwing every player on the bus now. Everything is just a dumpster fire in Auburn. But on Arkansas side, heading into this season, we didn't really know what to expect. We were saying, oh, this is going to be one of the worst teams in the SEC. But so far, this is only, 3-1 after this one. Arkansas, you really look at their quarterback, the Boise State transfer, really had a good performance against this Auburn defense. So what are your key takeaways from Arkansas getting this victory on the road?
I mean, I was really impressed that they were able to get a road SEC victory. I didn't see it happening for this team before the start of the season. So just that in its own right was really impressive. And the defense, I mean, I know Auburn's really bad at offense, no doubt about it. But to go into somebody else's home environment and hold them to 14 points on offense and just make them look utterly confused with multiple turnovers, I mean, it was really impressive.
Yeah, definitely. So big victory there for Arkansas. Arkansas's got a big one coming up against Texas A&M. Auburn will be on the bye, I believe. So that's definitely a much-needed bye for these Auburn Tigers. So let's move on to the next one. And this was honestly a shocker for me. Missouri was a heavy favorite into this one. But something about Vanderbilt, a week after them, they lost to Georgia State at Turner Field. They went on the road and almost shocked the world and beat Missouri, but Missouri ended up hanging on after Vanderbilt's kicker just shanked the field goal in many ways. If you play EA Sports College Football 25, you know what that kicker is going through. But Missouri 30-27. And honestly, Missouri's offense got off to a slow start in this one. Like I mentioned, you had that Luther Burden touchdown, but Missouri continues to struggle on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense, they give up a couple of big plays, especially on the ground. Diego Pavia had himself a game on the ground. But, I mean, Missouri, I know that they're undefeated, but they just don't feel like an undefeated team to me. And then Vanderbilt, on the other hand, I think they're going to, they're a 2-2 team right now, but they might shock some people down the road. So is there cause for concern for Missouri even since they're undefeated?
A little bit. I mean, they're going to need to play better than they did this week if they want to hang with Alabama in a couple weeks. And then I guess Texas A&M is probably their only other real difficult game. But yeah, if you're letting Vanderbilt hang with you at home, obviously there's a little bit of reason for concern. If you're a top 10 team, I mean, anybody else, it is SEC football. It is supposed to be close, but if you're a team that has playoff expectations, no, you should not let Vanderbilt hang with you. So I am a little concerned, especially with the offense. Like you said, I mean, you got Brady Cook, you got Burden back. Obviously, the newcomer at running back is doing quite well. He's no Cody Schrader, but this offense should be as good as it was last year, and it's just not been there. Yeah, it's just not there. And the defense, it's been pretty good. I think we were more concerned about the defense, but honestly, the defense has shown up.
Yeah, I mean, you lose your defensive coordinator, you lose a lot of guys, especially in that secondary. I think that Missouri, they did get gashed, but I think that their secondary really played well. I mean, you didn't really see a big play by Vanderbilt this weekend. But yeah, I mean, Missouri, you look at their schedule, it's really set up nice. Like you just mentioned, I think that their two toughest games are on the road at Texas A&M, and you got to go on the road to Alabama. Can't forget, you got to go on the road to UMass. Can't forget about that game. I don't know why they're going to UMass. Whatever, but no SEC team should ever go to that dump of a place. But Missouri, heck of a win though. I mean, if they would have lost this one, their college football playoff hopes, I don't know if they would probably be dashed, but they would pretty much have to win out if they were to get to the top. Yeah, they would definitely have to win out. But now, since you won this one, you could probably afford to lose a game out of whether that's Texas A&M or Alabama. Maybe they should just surprise us and just go 12-0. I mean, that would just be a Missouri thing that they would do. But big victory for Missouri. And don't forget about Vanderbilt. That's definitely a scrappy team. Clark Lee's definitely, they could have just folded after losing to Georgia State. So you got to give credit to them for playing well on the road. So now let's go on to the next one. This was our SEC Talk game of the week. Number 6, Tennessee headed to Norman for Oklahoma's first SEC game here in this conference, 25-15. And honestly, Tennessee didn't play that well, and they still won this game and dominated 25-15. Like you mentioned at the start of the show, Jackson Arnold didn't really play well at all. He had a couple of interceptions, and ultimately Brent Venables like, all right, kid, go on the bench. We're done with you. But, yeah, I mean, Tennessee was really in control. I mean, Nico showed his plays. I mean, he's pretty much not really a true freshman. This was his first true road game as a starter. I think that he really handled it well. Tennessee had some big plays with their star wide receivers. You saw Dylan Sampson once again get involved with it. So Tennessee continues to impress me. I mean, it wasn't like this, like, hey, let's put up 50 points and get out of here. This was Tennessee's defense. Really, we showed them this was their first test of the season. I think that they really passed that. So what's your overall takeaways? I think that Oklahoma coming out of this, I don't know about them, but Tennessee, they're looking really strong here in the SEC so far.
Yeah, I mean, the offense struggled to move the ball at times, but Oklahoma's got a good defense, no doubt. And Tennessee's defense, I mean, they impressed me. I know that Oklahoma's offense has struggled, but they got good pressure on Arnold. They forced a lot of turnovers. So I think maybe that unit's a little underrated, and we've seen this on championship teams in the past. I mean, sometimes the offense just doesn't travel on the road, and you need your defense to step up. So that I think that's exactly what happened here, and I think Tennessee. I mean, the way the schedule shapes up, you do play Georgia, but and Alabama, I guess too. So there's some tough ones to come. But I think this team is going to be ready for the challenge. I really do think this is a legit top 10 team.
Yeah, some big teams, some big games coming up for both of these teams. So still a lot to play for, even for Oklahoma, even with this loss. But they do have a tough test coming up on the road this week. I know that Auburn, hasn't been playing well, but going on the road in the SEC isn't as easy as it always assumes. So Oklahoma got a big test. Tennessee, I believe, is at one of those teams that is on the bye this week. So we'll see the Volunteers back on the field here in 2 weeks. So the next game was an interesting one, a Big Ten versus SEC battle in Death Valley. And LSU pulled away 34-17 and ultimately shut out the Bruins in the second half. A surprising first half. It was 17-17 at the half. UCLA really came to play in this one. They were definitely not fearing LSU in the first half, but LSU's defense really came to play. I think one of my guys that I looked at was Braden Swinson. I think he was your MVP of defense. You really saw him get after the quarterback. But once again, I'm going to shut up. You were at the stands for at least the first half. So
Barely.
what do you see overall from this LSU team against the Bruins? Yeah.
Well, I mean, kind of like the South Carolina game, UCLA had no problem moving the ball in the first half, and LSU came to play in the second half defensively. So maybe this team just needs to get warmed up. I don't know what it is, but kind of a lot of what we've seen, very similar. LSU can air it out. The defense takes a while to get going, but when they do, they look really good, especially the defensive line. They got a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And even in the first half, I mean, they were milliseconds away from getting a sack or even forcing a fumble, and then it turns into a big gain. So that happens. I wouldn't take a ton from this game. It was a day game. It was hot for both teams. I think LSU is still in pretty good shape, controls their destiny for sure. So I think if the defense can get after it a little earlier, especially in some of these big games coming up like Ole Miss, that would help the team get momentum. But I don't think we really learned much about LSU this weekend.
No, I don't think so either. I think that we continue to learn that the secondary continues to remain a problem for UCLA. I mean, not for UCLA, for LSU. I think that there was a lot of big plays, especially through the air. I mean, UCLA couldn't move the ball whatsoever last week against Indiana. Here's this team putting up 17 points in the half. But LSU, the cause for concern for me is their slow starts. You won't be able to start slow against, once you face off against Ole Miss, the Alabamas of the world, once you face them off, because those are going to be two high-powered offenses that if you start off now down like 17-0 or 10-0, it's going to be over, because that's definitely going to be a difficult margin to come over. But this was a good victory for LSU. I mean, is UCLA a good team? No, they're not. I mean, they're probably going to be at the bottom of the Big Ten if you really look at their schedule. It's brutal. They still got Michigan. They still got Oregon. And they actually have Oregon this week at home. So they're in for a rude awakening once they get to the Big Ten. Yeah. So nonetheless, though, LSU, like you mentioned, they still control their destiny. They get South Alabama, then they get the bye week, and then their really brutal stretch of their schedule heats up with Ole Miss. So good win for the Tigers. And we will now head to a week 4 pick 'em results, and look at that. All of us went 9-1 respectively for each of us. I think that Chet's one loss. I'm trying to see if I can remember what it was. I can't. But I know that ours was that Auburn and Arkansas game. We both picked Auburn, and we were probably done with Auburn the rest of the way, you and I. We've picked them a couple of times, to beat Cal and to beat Arkansas, and it just hasn't worked out for us. So nonetheless, 9-1, we will see if we can continue that momentum heading into week number 5. So let's waste no time. Let's get into week 5 games and pick'ems. We do have some teams on the buys, so not as much games as we saw here in the first couple of weeks of the season. But it's some really good games here in the conference. So let's start with the first one. It's SEC play kicking off for Ole Miss, Kentucky at number 6, Ole Miss, Kentucky. They did bounce back after a tough loss at home to Georgia with a 41-6 victory over Ohio. We talked about the SEC versus the MAC. The SEC took care of business against the MAC, though I was really impressed with Bowling Green this week. I think they're definitely going to be the talk of the town in that conference moving forward. But who are you going to roll with? Are you going to go with the Cats or go with the Rebs at home?
I don't see any hiccups here for Ole Miss. I mean, this offense should roll. I know that the Kentucky defense did limit Georgia, but if there's anything Ole Miss has better than Georgia, it's the offense. So, I mean, I think this team's going to put up a lot of points. If this game was on the road, you could say that there's a little edge there, but it's not. It's at Oxford, so I think this one's going to be pretty boring. Give me Ole Miss 42-17.
Yeah, I think Ole Miss is going to continue their dominance. I just don't think that this Kentucky offense is going to be able to even keep it remotely close with Jackson Dart in this offense. Just too many weapons. I know that Kentucky's defense is good, but this Ole Miss team, I mean, they're going to put up 40 on pretty much everybody that they play. So give me 45-3 in this one. It's going to be a complete other blowout. I think that this is a complete overmatch. Ole Miss is going to continue their winning ways. I mean, yeah, I think it just comes down to, I mean, Ole Miss is better on both sides of the ball, even their defense. I think their touchdown streak ended. Georgia Southern was the one to finally break that streak. So the streak ended sadly, but maybe they can get it back with Kentucky this week with Vanderbilt on the field. I'm going to go with Ole Miss pretty convincingly here. And we're all going with the Rebels to continue on there. So give us Ole Miss to beat Kentucky. Now let's go on to the next one. Mississippi State at number 1, Texas. This is not the environment that you want to be walking into. Especially a team that's been struggling. 3 straight losses. So Arizona State, Toledo, and now Florida. So 1-3, and you now have to face number 1 Texas. And by the way, once you get off the bye, you have to come on the road to face number 2 Georgia. So it's only going to get even worse for Mississippi State. I think that we're probably going to see 3 Longhorn logos, I would have to assume.
Yeah, I mean, Angie told me that they're going to have a new quarterback. So just doesn't look pretty. I'm going to go 59-0 Texas.
Holy moly. All right. We might as well all go in the 50s. I'll go 55-3. I think I'll give a pity point. I mean, honestly, I could see Tech. I mean, shoot, I would definitely take the shutout. I pick their defense. But yeah, you don't want to see. I think it's a freshman quarterback that Mississippi State's going to be running out there. So this is not the environment. And honestly, Mississippi State won't be able to stop Isaiah Bond and their rushing department there. So it's going to be a long one for Mississippi State. So give me Texas to win this one big and to show them that they're one of the best teams in the country. Chet, no upset for him. If Chet's not going to go with the upset, it's just going to be a blowout in this game. So they're all rolling with Texas to really put it to Mississippi State this week. Let's go on to the next game. Number 21, Oklahoma at Auburn. Both of these teams are coming off of losses. So do you see bouncing back in this matchup on the Plains?
I really don't like the direction for either of these teams, especially at the quarterback position. But I got to give Oklahoma some credit. They held the really good Tennessee offense in check for most of the ball game. So I think the defense for Oklahoma wins it. This is going to be a snoozer. I mean, it's going to be like 21-10.
Yeah, this is just probably going to be a defensive battle. Both offenses haven't really shown too much throughout the first couple of weeks of the season. Honestly, who knows who's going to be starting? Will it be Jackson Arnold? And who the heck is going to be for Auburn? Will it be Hank Brown or will it be Peyton Thorne? Who knows? But it doesn't matter. Not really. Like I mentioned, I'm done picking Auburn. I mean, if they win, good for them. But I just feel like Oklahoma at least has shown a pulse this season. Auburn really hasn't shown me much. So I think that Oklahoma's defense be the factor in this one. I think it's going to be like a 17-10 type of ball game. It's not going to be too much offense in this one. So give me Oklahoma to bounce back. And Chet's going to also go with Oklahoma. So all rolling with the Sooners. I was surprised that Chet didn't go with Auburn, but I mean, if
they were
you pick
playing
Arkansas,
anybody else, I would have picked them to lose.
Yeah. So all Boomer Sooner against the Auburn Tigers this week. So pretty consistent pick so far. We will see if that continues. We have our annual rivalry game in Jerry World, Arkansas versus number 24 Texas A&M. This has been a rivalry that's gone back and forth the last couple of years. A lot of weird and wacky finishes also. So these are two teams already have one loss. So do you have between the Hogs and the Aggies in this annual rivalry game?
Arkansas, they impress me, and this is a true neutral game. I think that Arkansas does bring a pretty good crowd to Dallas, and of course Texas A&M does. I just feel like Arkansas is going to get unlucky in this one, and Texas A&M is going to make a big play on defense. So give me the Aggies. It's going to be close though. I think it's going to be like 24-22.
Yeah, A&M didn't look great against Bowling Green, I will say that. But I am going to go with Texas A&M. I did thought about going with Arkansas, but I just have Le'Veon Moss having himself a day. I think that if Texas A&M is going to win that matchup, they are going to have to rely on their running game. I think that Texas A&M's defense will definitely be the de facto in this one. This will be a close game. I'll go 24-21, giving the Aggies to win this one. They continue to control their destiny as well. This is a team that's not out of it. They lost their season opener Notre Dame. Their schedule honestly really sets up nicely for them. They do have some tough games down the stretch, but if they can win this one, I think that they can really reel off some wins down the stretch. Is Chet going to agree with us once again? No, he's not. I guess, man, he's been picking a lot of the Hogs lately. So woo pig suey. So Chet, that is your opportunity to climb up the leaderboard if Arkansas can pull away and see if Taylor Green can have himself another big game against Texas A&M. Now let's go on to our SEC Talk game of the week. College Game Day will be there, a top 4 battle. We usually see this matchup in the SEC Championship, but now we see it in the regular season with number 2 Georgia and number 4 Alabama. Like I just mentioned in the pre-show, both of these teams are on the bye week, so they should be fully recovered and ready to roll here. So who you going to go with between Georgia and Alabama? The winner of this one is going to be set up nicely down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, the winner might deserve the number 1 spot based off of strength of schedule and big time win. But I'm going to go with the road team here. I'm going to go with Georgia. I think it being at Alabama gives me some intrigue for the Tide, but I think if you can shut down Milroe's ability to run and improvise, I think it's going to be a long day for Alabama. I would really force him to beat me with his arm, knowing that that's kind of my strength at Georgia and the defensive back. So I'd just get pressure on him and spy him and really make him sit in the pocket and throw the ball. And I think they can do that. So give me Georgia.
Yeah, I think that Georgia's we're going to see the film like, all right, let's just stack the box, put a QB spy on Jalen Milroe to see if we can limit that. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a tough environment that Georgia's going to be walking into. It's under the lights, Alabama, the home crowds, battle the undefeateds. And Georgia, we got to talk about their week 1 victory against Clemson. Every time that Clemson's now walking on the field, I mean, it's that offense. I mean, they put up 66 against App State and now 59 against NC State. So that win is getting better and better for Georgia. So if you want to talk about resumes, look ahead to the college football playoff. I mean, if they go on the road and beat Alabama, I mean, they already have 2 pretty much top 10 teams, 2 top 15, 2 top wins. I forgot what Clemson is ranked. I think they're in the top 15 now.
I think they're back in the top 20.
Okay. So, yeah, Georgia. But the last time we saw Georgia's offense wasn't really good. It was a really good defensive showing of Kentucky. So I think that Alabama's defense will rise to the occasion. And give me the Crimson Tide to win this one. I don't know what the spread is. I think that Georgia is a slight 2.5. But give me the home team, Alabama. This is when they show that they're not dead yet. Everybody's saying that Nick Saban has left. They struggled against South Florida for their first half, but this team has really showed a lot for the past couple of weeks. I think this offense will come to play, and I think that their defense will be able to create some pressure on Carson Beck, making him difficult. This will be a close game. I don't really see a lot of points. 2 really good defenses here in the SEC. So they're just going to be old-fashioned SEC smash-mouth football where whoever has the ball last will probably win this game. So give me the Crimson Tide. And Chet's also going to go with Georgia, so I will take it. I'll be the lone Crimson Tide on this one. So 2 Georgia and 1 Alabama here in this SEC clash in Tuscaloosa. We have one more game to get to. This is a Sunbelt versus SEC game. I don't even want to mention the last time that a Sunbelt team walked into this place, what happened. But South Alabama, number 14, LSU. South Alabama, if you've been seeing them the past couple of weeks, I don't know who the hell pissed them off, but they put up 87 against Northwestern State and now 49 against App State. So this might be a lot of points, a lot of back and forth battle, but who you got between the Jags and the Tigers in Death Valley? And if you're an LSU fan, yes, this isn't Saturday night. You won't probably be sweating your butt off this time.
Yep. I think it's going to be another game where maybe LSU lets up some points early and then settles in. And I think they'll take care of business. But I do think South Alabama will score, maybe on 2 of the first 3 drives. And then I think LSU will settle in. So give me the Tigers in this one. Let's go 45 to I'll give the Jaguars 3 touchdowns, 45-21.
I think that this is going to be a game that LSU definitely does not want to play anymore because South Alabama has awoken up to the team that I thought that they were going to be. Gio Lopez is playing like I thought he was going to be. I picked him the Sun Belt Player of the Year. Whatever the line is, I don't even know what it is. I think that South Alabama covers, and they make this at least a 3-quarter battle. I think that their defense will limit them, but their offense will be able to score against this LSU defense. So I'm not even going to give you a score prediction, but I think whatever the line that Vegas sets, give me South Alabama to cover that one. But I do think that LSU wins at home and heads into the bye week feeling pretty confident about themselves. They did get the loss against USC in week number 1, but you took care of business the rest of the way. So give me LSU in a close one, but they're going to be sweating out South Alabama. I mean, they're not scared. They beat Oklahoma State 31-7 last year, so they're not going to be. This is a team that, I mean, they played in big environments. So, I mean, going into Death Valley is nothing to them. So give me LSU, but Jaguars keep it close. And Chet's also going to go with LSU to win this one. So going to be a fun environment at South Alabama LSU. I tried to go to that game a couple of years back, but the hurricane in Florida, and then we ended up playing Florida that year. So who knows? Maybe I'll make the trip on Saturday to see the Jags and the Tigers. We'll see. But let's get into our hot topics. The first one, Oklahoma is going to be evaluating their quarterbacks after Jackson Arnold bench. Who do you think should be the signal caller for the Sooners moving forward?
I would stick with him. I mean, it's hard to bench a guy for losing to a top 5 team, but honestly, his play took them out of that game. They got the ball on the 5-yard line on a gift from Tennessee, and then he proceeded to fumble it on a quarterback draw. And to me, that was the turning point in the game, because if Oklahoma punched that in, I mean, I think it would have tied it or maybe given them the lead. And instead, you gave it right back to Tennessee, and I just think that was it. But yeah, I would stick with them. However, I don't think they have a quarterback better on this roster, Arnold included, that's better than Dylan Gabriel. So that's a little bit of a head scratcher why you didn't want Gabriel to be the guy that leads this team into the SEC. But anyways, I guess it worked out for both guys. Gabriel's at Oregon playing real well, and Arnold is still Oklahoma's quarterback at the moment.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Oklahoma fans on Twitter saying, "Why the heck did we get rid of of Dylan Gabriel for Jackson Arnold?" And I completely agree. I mean, if you just imagine if you had Dylan Gabriel still with this offense, the defense has really improved from last year. The defense wasn't good, so. Yeah, I mean, you got to just roll Jackson Arnold. He's the best that you got, but it probably won't be as pretty of a season as Oklahoma fans saw it. But Tennessee's defense is really good. They're one of the best in the SEC, so we'll see what he can do against this Auburn defense on the road. It's one thing to play at home, but now to go to Jordan Hare, that's going to be a different story. But the next hot topic, I did mention this when we were talking about Mississippi State. Mississippi State quarterback Blake Shapen hurt his shoulder and out for the year, so that's just tough news of what's already been a disappointing season for Mississippi State so far. So I don't know if Blake Shapen has any more eligibility. I don't know. I feel like he's been in college for a couple of years now, so I'm not sure if we'll see him back next year for Mississippi State. But we will have to keep an eye on that. The next team let's get to is Auburn Tigers. What the heck is going on with Auburn? And is it a time to panic?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do anything. Maybe they can get to a bowl game this year and salvage it. But look, if there's a guy that you really want to be your coach, and you know that Florida's maybe open,
they've been begging to get Gus Malzahn back.
I think you gotta swing for the fences, because there's just not going to be many quality candidates out there, I don't think. And Florida's going to have their pick of the litter, presumably. And if Florida hires somebody that's proven, then that school will be in the market for a coach. So I don't know. I just don't think you can be happy with the direction Hugh Freeze has got this team. They have no playmakers other than Jarquez Hunter, who is a holdover from the last group.
He hasn't really been performing as well. I mean, you can't blame him. The Auburn offense overall just sucks.
Well, he's the only one that poses a threat. They're going to run the football.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this team just doesn't have any spark. And I mean, neither of us were sold on Peyton Thorne going into the season. And maybe they do have something in this freshman quarterback, but we didn't see it this week. So, yeah, I think this team is like on par with Mississippi State, honestly, as far as like trajectory.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to go well. I mean, if they lose against Oklahoma, everything's just going to go downhill the rest of the season. They still got plenty of hard games here on the schedule. It doesn't get any easier. So, I mean, you had a winnable game against Arkansas, and your offense couldn't really step up. And I mean, you haven't really seen this offense step up the whole entire season. They struggled to score against Cal. We probably should have saw it right then and there that this offense had a lot of problems. So it's definitely time to panic. I mean, from everything, from the head coach of Hugh Freeze, what he's done. I mean, you got to look at that. I mean, I know it's already too early to talk about a buyout, but Auburn fans, they're not going to wait any longer. I mean, they just
You
been
can't sit
through a
around
cookie
in
carousel.
today's day
Ever
and
since
age.
they fired Gus Malzahn, it just hasn't been pretty. You went from, I can't even remember the head coaches who just couldn't really do anything. But yeah, I don't know what Auburn does from here on out. They probably just have to clean house once again. Hopefully, you can find a head coach that can actually have a good offense for once. So we'll see what Auburn does, but who knows? All right, let's go on to the next one. Let's go to a positive for once. I mean, I feel like we had three negatives, so let's finish it off with a positive. Is Tennessee a national title contender?
Yeah, I mean everything that you want to see out of a national championship contender they have, and I think the defense showed up in a huge way against Oklahoma. So yeah, I think this team is legit to me, and I'm sold on them for sure. I know you're pretty high on them as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely high on him. I mean, I would be shocked if this team doesn't make the college football playoff, but they definitely still have some tough games to go to. So let's get to our comments. LSU defense needs to wake up. Speaking of the LSU defense, let's get to a bonus hot topic. We did get some news out of Baton Rouge just before the show. Harold Perkins is out for the season. He has a torn ACL. So where does this LSU defense move forward? Without now Perkins, you lose Perkins out for the year, and Jacoby and Guillory. So, I mean, this is LSU defense that, I mean, hasn't looked great throughout the first couple of weeks of the season. Now you lose, your best defensive tackle and overall best defensive player. Where do the Tigers defense now move from here? I mean, especially if Ole Miss
Well,
waiting for you in 2 weeks.
yeah. I mean, luckily you mentioned a guy at the beginning of the show that has really played lights out the last 2 weeks, and that's Braden Swinson. I think he's been the Tigers' best pass rusher, but Harold Perkins plays a little bit of a tweener position, hybrid position, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's really going to hurt this defense because, yeah, he can give you a presence on the pass rush, but he's also a terrific coverage linebacker. You got guys like Wes Weeks and Whit Weeks, his brother, in the middle. But whoever they slide into that spot is going to have to play a little bit of edge and also be able to drop back. I don't know that you can put somebody like Womack in there and expect him to play the coverage side of things. And then I think if you move one of the safeties up or put the other Weeks brother there, I just don't know if they have the pass rush ability. So Harold Perkins kind of brought the best of both worlds to that spot. I think you're going to see a big adjustment. I think you're going to see more of a traditional, I wouldn't call it a 4-3 defense, but I do think you'll see more of a blitzing outside linebacker or a traditional left and right end. So it'll be interesting. I think that you got to scheme around him rather than trying to replace him. It's a good time to do it against South Alabama, but and with the bye week. But yeah, Ole Miss and Alabama and some other teams looming, they're going to take advantage of that for sure.
Yeah, not having a guy like Harold Perkins on the field, you're definitely going to feel it every single Saturday. I mean, LSU, in the second half was able to do it, but I mean, that was UCLA. I mean, you're not going to be able to do the same against some of these top offenses. But let's talk about more of Harold Perkins here. I mean, he was a projected first round pick. I mean, Mel Kiper has him as the number 2 outside off-ball linebacker. So what do you think that this injury does to his draft chances? Do you still think that somebody's going to take a chance on him in the first round, or does he fall into a day 2 candidate now?
I think he slips a little bit. I mean, I think going into the year, he had top 10 potential, but there's still a big question on what position does he play in the NFL. He's a little undersized to be, a defensive end. He's going to have to
He's
be an
probably going
outside
to be playing
linebacker.
linebacker at the next level.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Shaq Thompson on Carolina. So I think that there's potential for him to still be a first round pick, but it was always going to be a scheme thing as well. I saw him being I don't know, maybe a top 20 pick before the injury. So I think he hangs on to the end of the first round, probably gets in a pretty good position with a contender. But if not, he'll be an early
He just
day two.
screams the Chiefs pick.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a contender that can get the extra year on his contract that you get with first round picks, and it's a luxury pick, you don't need to put him in right away. And honestly, with it being pretty early in the season, he should be good to go by this time next year. So even if he misses the first 4 games or something, I mean, a team like, imagine adding him to like the Baltimore defense or the Cowboys defense, Chiefs defense. I mean, that's the kind of defense that needs him, not somebody that's looking for an every down linebacker. I think that
honestly, it's better. I hate that he got hurt, but
as a
he's going to be going
specialist,
to
like a
contender
pass
now.
rush guy. Oh man.
Yeah, I could really honestly now you brought about it. I mean, after seeing Dallas the past couple of weeks, they need a pass rusher because they haven't been able to get any pass rush. So I mean, yeah, I could see like Baltimore, Dallas, Buffalo, one of those defenses that need a off ball linebacker, defensive end. That'd be a perfect fit. So I don't think that this defense, I mean, that this injury is going to affect him too much in this draft stock. I mean, he's got elite talent. Someone not really going to say like take a chance on him, but hey, he can do it all. You want him to play defensive end. He's shown it. He can play linebacker too. So definitely a tough one for the LSU defense. You got to find someone to replace him. I don't know who can. Who will it be? I guess we'll see on Saturday what defensive schemes that LSU does against South Alabama. But it won't be easy for this LSU defense to recover from losing a guy like Guillory and losing a guy like Perkins, one of your best defensive players. So LSU's defense, they haven't really shown much, and to lose those 2 guys, definitely cause for concern if you're a Tiger fan moving forward. But that is it for us here in week number 5. Next week, we will look ahead to week number 6. That will be our midway point of the season. It's crazy to think, but the season, I feel like it's always – I mean, I know that we're only in September, so we still got a lot of season to get through. But we're starting to get into more of our conference play. So we're getting into a lot of these games that are going to matter a lot once, the college football playoff – I'm sure that they're going to be doing their show on like November, and they're going to be showing the 12-team bracket, and we're going to be seeing a lot of SEC teams. So definitely a lot of football to be played, and we will talk more about it next week as we recap week 5, look ahead to week number 6. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hope everybody enjoys the rest of your week, and we will see you right back here next week on SEC Talk. So long for now.